Right then, Glenn, I am working on a masterclass all about how to position your offer, your product, your services. So this could be something that you're selling or your own services that you're selling out in the market. And I'm working on it for Fix Accelerator members, but I thought we should do a little sort of, I don't want to say a teaser. I'm going to show my working a little bit and talk through some of the things that I think are important when it comes to positioning your product. Why has that made you laugh?
Because part of my, well, you'll see in a minute. I'll let you conclude your opening gambit.
Well, I was wrapping it up.
Well, you were going for a natural wrap up, a segue into me speaking there. Well, the reason is because we, to show you working out, we were thinking about how to start this, and then I said we'll just car crash into it, which we have done effectively.
Yeah.
But you again threw me from what I was going to say, because you said about showing you working out, and I actually had this thought the other day that part of my positioning is that I believe quite heavily, with a number of caveats, that showing you working out in the marketing world is one of the most effective ways to position yourself. It's certainly something I've done. I like telling people what I'm doing, what I'm working on, how I've worked on it, how I've done it, and showing the actual bones of it, because I guess on a meta level, when you're trying to show other copywriters how to do copywriting, that is a very useful thing to be able to see how you do it. If you only ever show the end product or hide it behind some secret or what have you, you don't really get to see the reality of how you got to that. So I'm a big fan of showing everything, not just show, don't tell, but actually showing warts and all, as Cromwell.
And I just want to place on the record that it was definitely worth you interrupting my introduction to make that point. Just want to place on the record.
Right. If you enjoy The Fix and want to get access to even more good stuff, join the Fix Accelerator today. Get access to special masterclasses from Nick and me, watch expert interviews with industry legends, join live copy feedback sessions every week, and get connected to our very own private copy network. Visit thefixaccelerator.com for more information.
Let's get started. Let's talk about positioning. So, and by the way, I'm going to come back to a video of, I want to put a video online of you working out. So it's literally us showing you working out, but probably just doing press up, dips, some burpees.
I can't remember because of the velvet cake incident, which you will only know if you're part of the Fix Accelerator and our live calls. I revealed the full details of the velvet cake incident and why it has left me challenged. And I'm still coming through that challenge that I can't work out.
We'll come back to that, but eventually we should start talking about marketing and positioning. So I think the key when you're thinking about how to position your offer is there's the paradigm I would lay out, the spectrum is there's better and then there's different. Okay. So here's how I would think about it. At its core, most positioning work you're going to do involves tapping into your prospects' sense of how they categorize you. Okay. So I'll just use an example from my own, from my own career. I used to work for a magazine. Okay. Money Week magazine. Okay. So it's a magazine. It's for sale every week. You could buy it from some, retailers. It was mostly online subscriptions, but some retailers. So you could go into a shop and Money Week would be right there alongside other magazines. It would be right there alongside its competitors effectively. So that's a category, right? They're all there. Okay. So your reader's thinking, I've got The Week, I've got Money Week, I've got The Economist, I've got Investors Chronicle, Shares magazines. They're all there in one place. So in that situation, it's very hard to stand out as different, really, because they're all magazines. So for instance, if there was like 3 magazines that cost £5 and one that cost £50, you'd think, why is that one so expensive? You'd think it was a rip-off, right? Because you're anchored to that category. And actually, I think that was one of the reasons we struggled with that publication, because really what was inside didn't have to be in a magazine at all. It could have been in other formats, which would have had a different set of categories, which I'll come to in a second. In that situation where it's very closely categorized, you have to stand out as better. Okay. You kind of have to. You have to show why you are better for that prospect than the next magazine. Now, if we wanted to be different, we wouldn't even call it a magazine at all. We would completely break that category. Now, that same business sold a very, very similar kind of investment research. I mean, there were some differences, technical and otherwise, but for all intents and purposes, very similar content, very similar research, often conducted by the same expert, same analyst, and often sold to the same consumer. However, we would call those services newsletters or trading advisories or systems or whatever it might be. Tip sheets, some people called them, all manner of different other things. By breaking out of that category, you don't have to be better anymore. You don't have to be better than your competitor because you can call yourself something different, and different often works way better than better, if you know what I mean, because it's easier to prove your point of difference than it is to prove, like, to a high degree of to a high sort of burden of proof that your product is better than its competitor. So that, to me, is that sort of nub of the issue when it comes to positioning. And I'm going to give you some other examples, all of which will be from our own careers and the work that we do at The Fix, about really thinking in terms of how do I make my product, offer, services stand out as different rather than how do I show that they are better. Thinking that way will create a big shift in the way that you market your product, and it opens up lots more interesting avenues. It's far more interesting to show that you're different than to try and prove that you're better. That's the nub of the issue. The nub, Glenn. I've come to the nub.
We're straight in on the nub. It's a sharp nub. Nub feels like a blunt word, but you've described a very sharp, focused, and decisive nub.
The nub of the issue. The sharpened nub.
Nib. I'd say the nib of the issue.
The nub.
One of the nib. Yeah, I agree, and you put it very clearly. I think as well, part of it is because when you're different, you get an added, or rather, you get an added bonus, which I've noticed recently. Literally yesterday, something happened to me where I realized, because you don't necessarily have to, or rather, you don't have to rely on how you define yourself, in the sense that other people, because they see something different and don't quite know how to describe it, even if you don't quite know how to describe it, they will put a description on it that they are comfortable with, and they will do a lot of that work for you and go, well, I like this because it's this, and they will reflect upon you what they want to see, rather than saying, this is the best version of this, I'm going to put myself on I buy the middle level wine on the menu rather than the high level wine. It's that kind of self-selecting decision that a customer makes when things are better, and kind of reduced, quite an unemotional reaction there. It's quite a transactional thing. Whereas when you define yourself by how you are different, because it ergo becomes a bit vaguer and a bit stranger and a bit like harder to define, the work actually starts to be increasingly done on the customer side, and rather than an unemotional, like better, expensive, like price point kind of thing, assessment that customer is making, they're making the assessment on how they see you, and that's a much more powerful reaction. You will get much more connection and engagement with the customer, potential client, customer, whatever you want to call them, by doing it that way. It's free. It's a free added thing. Like, they will do that work for you, which is interesting, I think.
Well, you raise a couple of interesting points. I'm going to take them in turn. First is really what we're talking about is finding your USP, and we always sort of shy away from the word unique. You know, how do you describe something as being unique? Well, you make it uncategorizable, or you just make it different to everything else. You don't need to say it's unique, but by emphasizing its difference, you create a level of uniqueness, uniquity, to, you know, if you got to have
Eating there. I think that's a new gum to get you off vapes. Unique.
Yeah, I could think of a couple of other guns you could use to get people off vapes, but let's not go down that route. I'm glad the metaphor of wine is a really good one. Right? Wine is very categorizable. Okay. And straight away you thought of a wine list with prices. Okay. There's the best at the top. That's going to be the most expensive. And people are going to make a value-based decision, really. I mean, some people know exactly what bottle of wine they want. Probably they don't. They're not going to go for the most expensive. They're not going to go for the least expensive. They're going to pick on the number, really. Yeah. Or they're going to look for something that they vaguely tightly categorizable. Okay. So you're basically selling on being the best. Now, something that's uncategorizable might be something that isn't wine. Okay. Like a cocktail or something. I mean, even a cocktail list can be tightly categorized, but there's going to be more points of difference. I remember once, I'll give you an example, it was actually at Rancho Santana. Okay. So this is a place in Nicaragua, connected to some of the people involved in the businesses that we work for. So I was at the bar, and there was
not anything to do with Santana, the guitarist, just to get that off.
No,
just get that off. Well, that's not.
Santana fans go in there will be disappointed. If you like, you know, beautiful sunshine.
In fact, the only guitarist allowed there is Brian May. So it's a very different party.
Yeah.
Very different party.
No, there was a drink on the menu, right, which was like beer mixed with lime and then like Worcestershire sauce of some sort.
I'm so glad you added something else, because at that point it was just Corona. Lime. Yeah.
Look, do you not remember when Corona became a thing? It was the one that's lime in it. That's an uncategorizable. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's not better, it's different. Okay, this drink was disgusting, and the people tried to talk me out of having it. They're like, don't have that. You won't like it. I thought it was going to have like a dash of Worcestershire sauce in it. It was like half a pint of Worcestershire sauce with beer in the top. Oh, it was so different that it sort of stood apart. And because it stood apart, and I'm going to make a broader point here, it's much harder for me to understand what that should or shouldn't cost. Okay. So to use my investment research thing, a trading advisory, what would the price of that be? £5 a week, like a magazine, or £100 a week, or £2,000 a year? We had a lot more control over the price became a lot more elastic, effectively, if you wanted to use technical terms. And the same thing's true in all things. Because it's uncategorizable, it allows you to be in control of what you charge. So for instance, if you are just to define yourself as a straight up copywriter.
Well, can I interject to take it to the very lowest form, which I think you were about to do? Take it. If you define yourself as just doing the words, which is a classic kind of almost tongue-in-cheek reaction of most copywriters, yeah, I just do the words. But if you charge words $1 per word or what have you, that is literally defining yourself by a word, like to such a ridiculous level that, well, a word costs £1. Okay, fine. Like that is the lowest form, and you can see why that is with those pre-metaphors that we'd established.
Yeah, so your categorization of yourself locks you into a certain set of values. It's really hard to break out of. So if you say, look, I'm a copywriter, I charge £2,000 per day. Somebody might say, God, that's 5 times more expensive than the average, maybe. Now, it may or may not be that you're worth that. But if you were to change, and you can say, I'm a senior copywriter, I'm a veteran copywriter, you are, there is going to be a grading scale. You're going to be able to move up that price scale. But you're never going to be able to break out of it because you've chosen to define yourself as within that category. And so you've locked yourself into those things. But if you called yourself, for instance, a publisher for hire, or you see a lot of it now, a fractional copy chief or a fractional marketing chief or whatever. These are all attempts. God,
I don't even know what that is. What does that mean? What do people mean by that?
It just means me. But it's a freelance marketing director. So it's like, do you want a marketing director who only does a day a week at your company?
All right. Someone who's going to fucking kill me.
Okay. That's your own bias, but harder to define because you didn't know what it was, right? So I'm not saying it's always going to make your life easier, as in you might have to educate your prospect about what it is that you do, because the point of difference might create questions, but also, okay, well, how much do you charge? How much do I pay for a fractional marketing? Well, this is what it costs. You've got a lot more latitude then to say, well, this is different to that. It's not about being better. Now, if you're a copywriter and you're in a very, very competitive market, the easy mistake you can make, and we'll use finance as an example, is to go for better, 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 right? In finance, that means bigger gains, faster gain, more certain gain. It promise inflation, better, 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 better. Now, someone has to be the best, and you can attempt to prove that you are them. Nothing wrong with it, but that fall into the trap that's the only way of building a marketing message, because better, 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 better is a hard race to win. Somebody else might be more unscrupulous than you. Somebody else might be better than you. They might have more credibility, better track record, better testimonials, more established position in the market, and they're just going to beat you at being the best. So you have to be different.
It's also, you can't better in any realm, in any kind of work thing, in any culture, in anything. I'm just thinking of I will say that Paul Auster is a better writer than J.K. Rowling. That is meaningless. I'm saying it's meaningless. To me, I prefer the work of Paul Auster to J.K. Rowling. But someone else will be like, no, I don't. But I would say it's better. So it's just, again, it comes back to what I was saying earlier on, that free bonus of you put the defining in the customer, in the client. They're the people who are going to decide what's better and what's thingy anyway. So actually, in this particular thing, if you're just going for a better, then you don't know what that client's perception of better is. If you are someone who believes that better is doing the work faster, but your client is someone who believes in doing work slowly and by the by, but your next day, here's the answer, they won't think you're better. So it's completely kind of, it undermines itself ultimately in a way.
It locks you into a very narrow way of marketing, okay? Because it becomes a sort of pissing contest, for want of a better way of describing it. Now, by just thinking from the outset, I'm not going to try and show that this is better or the best. I want to emphasize what's different about it. What can I say about this that's unlike anything else? Even if that isn't necessarily a direct benefit, your positioning, you're trying to get your reader to categorize your product in the way that you want them to. Now, if you want them to categorize your product as a magazine, that's fine. Okay. If your goal is to be in that category and show that you're up there and compete with those, maybe you're going to compete on price. Maybe you're selling socks and your socks are half the price of the next best brand. That's fine. Nothing wrong with it. Okay. But make that decision purposefully and know that in loads of ways, just showing that you're different, taking that step into difference first, and then educating the reader about the benefits of or the prospect about the benefits of your product, you allow yourself a position in the market, or you create for yourself a position in the market that is going to more often than not be more advantageous, and it's probably going to lead to more interesting marketing. So I'll give you another example, right? When we did Fix Fest, okay? Now, if you want to be really show you're working, we said to ourselves, how would we do a copywriting event, a bit like a conference? And the first thing, so our first thought was conference, okay? A category. There are conferences. There are copywriting and marketing conferences out there. Within about 5 minutes, we both said, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do another conference. So straight away we said, I said, let's do a festival. And you said, what would that look like? And I said, I don't know yet, but let's do it. So we didn't even really know what we were going to try and create, but we knew we didn't want it to be that. And we never wanted it to compete with that. We wanted it to be and feel different. Now, you could strip everything away and say at its root, it's people in a room listening to people speak. However, what we did wasn't built around that. It was built around having a choir and drinks. And did we have a robot that turned up? No, he had to go to a doctor's appointment, didn't it?
True, that was FixFest 2, the robot debacle. But we got a jazz singer instead, who was less digital, but fine. Yeah, no, it's you remind me. I'm organising a live event in the book world at the moment, and my friend who I'm organising it with, she said, "I will do it there because then you can have a beer or a glass of wine or what have you." And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "We're doing a gig, aren't we?" And it's like, "Yes, we're doing a gig. It's not a book event; it's a gig. Just that quick, like very small, very subtle, but just moves it away from what the expected bookish event you would go to. In my mind, I'm like, right now, I'm going to make it a bit more punk rock. It's going to be a bit more giggy." Yeah. It's a very small thing. FixFest was on a much wider scale, but that is where always my mind is going. It's like, how can this be slightly a little bit different, a little bit strange, a little bit and then I don't need to be new. It don't, like, there can be for FixFest, the first one I remember was going, right, so we want, like, what do we know from a festival? We want live music, we want tables, we want merch. We knew we wanted that kind of environment. That's what you're looking for. Just a very little sidestep. The old Bill kind of change one variable. That's all you're kind of trying to do, is just trying to find a small point of difference and then lean into that.
So obviously that's an accentuated example because we were able to that's our event, our product. So we're able to change what it is. We didn't just describe it differently. We did it differently. We said, let's do it in a church and let's change all these variables. So not everybody's able to do that because not everybody's able to change products, but you can, sometimes you just got to market something. But the principle of that is exactly what we're talking about. How do you step into a new category? What can you change that shows that what you're doing is different? And just keep forefront in your mind that it's way easier to prove that you're different than prove that you're better. The threshold of evidence is way, way lower. Your job is easier. And yet for that, you get a whole host of benefits. So, when we've talked about people's positioning in the market as copywriters, how you describe yourself, this is not to say that you need to invent a whole new term for what you do every time. Because that would be crazy. And, you see some people where it's like, I don't know what that is. But how are you different to everybody else? You don't want to be categorized as a copywriter, do you? Because there's already a lot of people out there. So you have to show that you're better than them or cheaper than them. How do you show that you're different? Now, I've seen it with people in the Fix Accelerator, people leaning into their backgrounds as a physiotherapist, for instance, or working on the trains, or some past life, working in the army or whatever it might have been. And then that leads to a position in the market that's like, well, that guy knows that, or she does this. It's different to everybody else. And it may, this is sort of the second point I would bring to the table, it may result in pushing some people away. Because that's part of positioning too. This is right for you, but it's not right for you. That's part of policing the boundaries of your offer. And that's really important too, because if you try and pretend that you're right for everybody,
some people love boring shit. Some people love boring shit, and they can have that boring shit. I'm not going to position myself for them. They can go away and be quite dull.
Well, for instance, you might say, I don't know. I mean, I've said this to clients, like, there are way, way cheaper financial copywriters out there, just so you know. And you might want to go and hire one of them. I'm not going to, they're cheaper for a reason, probably. So you might push people away based on price. There's all sorts of different ways you could police it, but that's part of positioning too. This isn't right for you. That's what the sort of velvet cord. I'll give you another example, a great example that I just thought of positioning. There was an old Agora newsletter published years and years ago called The Supper Club.
I knew you was going to say The Supper Club. It's one of the great. It's stuck in my mind for decades, and I still think there's life in that old dear yet kind of thing. But
it's true.
Explain it. Tell us about The Supper Club.
Well, it was a newsletter. It was a financial newsletter, but it was defined as a meeting. I can't remember if they actually met or whether or not they didn't. In fact, there's lots of clubs back in the day, Oxford Club, things like that were all started back then. Now, what we're actually starting to see now is people maybe going back to those ideas in a much more authentic way. Back then, maybe it was just a marketing positioning thing, like we're a club. Well, how does the club manifest itself? Via a newsletter. That was the deal back then. Now it's much more like, well, no, we're an actual club. We have a clubhouse. You can come to this building and have coffee, or we meet regularly, or so like making good on some of those implied promises, which were always there, but maybe not delivered upon as authentically. Or perhaps people that subscribed felt part of a club, but it was all about the way that they were communicated to. But that's a great example from the financial space of like, don't call it a newsletter. Don't call it a tip sheet. You're joining a club. It just happens to have this communication as part of it. That's a change in the positioning, not better, different.
And you've got free stuff.
Yeah.
Someone would put you some toast, give you a bowl of soup, and that was it. That's what people paid for.
The irony is that Bill would only ever eat cornflakes for supper. So as it was very, very cheap to fulfill.
That's how different it was. Yeah.
That is a great example of positioning. Like another example, I'll just use another example from what we're doing at the moment. We've organized this event at the Chateau over in Normandy in May. Again, there's an established way of doing those things. It tends to be in a hotel somewhere. Come to this hotel, have this meeting. There'll be sparkling water. There might be really cool people in the room, but that's what it will be. So right from the outset, it's like, no. I genuinely cannot be bothered to do that because it just would bore me silly. How do we make it really new and different and unlike anything else? Well, would you like to come to a chateau? Well, okay, straight away. There isn't another chateau offer out there. There isn't another categorizable event. So already I'm one of one. Okay. Now I just got to convince you that it's going to be worth your time. Instantly, you're in your own a category all of your own, which is where, in any work that I do, that's where I want to be. And I think it's where most people want to be. And if you don't want to be there, if you want to be categorized as I'm a magazine or I'm a financial newsletter or a trading service, or whatever, you want to do that on purpose because you can prove that you're the best or you're up there. Otherwise, you're just part of the pack. You're just another thing on the shelf and next to all of your competitors.
Just like a brick in the wall. You're just another brick in the wall.
We don't need no education. By the way, that is the album that I put on when I have to do my VAT returns, and I need to give myself a treat because I hate doing accounting so much. I think if I listen to The Wall, that's for my soul, and my brain can just be doing the VAT stuff while that's going on. It's the only way I can.
I had a discussion about VAT returns the other day, and I did think of you. I might have used you as an example of someone who, I think it was the day that you once just said, Glenn, I will pay you to make this go for me. Like, she's killing me.
I will pay you to end this misery. Right. Let's wrap this up. So we're going to be developing on this theme in a masterclass for Fix Accelerator members. You're welcome to join. If you do join, you will get access to the entire back catalogue of masterclasses that we've already done. Which number? There are tons of this. 25 plus, of course, you can
actually that is more than 25. It's like 30 odd, but 2 of them are like series that are all in the same number. That's why that's just remembered. There you go.
Plus, you get to come on our live calls on a Friday. I mentioned that only because we're probably going to stop offering that to new members effectively this year. Certainly at the price it's at, just because it's only £10, $12 a month. So it's an absolute steal. So if you're interested, you're serious about becoming a better copywriter, you want to meet other copywriters, check out the thing.
A different copywriter.
Yeah.
If you want to become a different copywriter, not a better copywriter, you will become a better copywriter, but you will also become a different.
It will make you stranger. Not interested in doing any of those things, and for some reason you'll
watch this for 29 minutes like an insane maniac, which might make you different. So good luck to you. You sorted.
Special offer for insane maniacs. Right. We need to wrap this up because we've got to go on a call straight after this about a different project. So Glenn, thank you very much. We'll be back next week with another episode of The Fix. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
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 I actually went to turn it off with my coaster
Good.
Uh,
It works.
No.
That's all for this episode, but if you'd like to get your copy reviewed, or you've seen some copy you want Nick and Glenn's opinion on, get in touch at feedback@thefixcopywriting.com. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and share.